So for Staff Recognition Week, it would be really good to try and do something that showcased how the staff responded during COVID and the pressures they were under and what was expected of them. So bearing in mind that at the beginning of COVID, we were being warned to expect very acute patients, be expected to do clinical things that we hadn't done for a long time, if ever, and to really kind of step up. And the staff just, whilst they were really anxious, did respond, did step up to it. And then the reality was that actually those patients didn't come to us. The patients who did come to us were the very elderly, very frail patients who weren't appropriate for those really acute interventions. And actually thinking about how the staff still stepped up in a different way with immense courage and compassion. And I think looking at all 3 wards across Lings Bar, they all did that, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. Because when we were told COVID's hitting, these are the measures we need to put in place, it was a bit of the unknown, wasn't it? We didn't know what we were going to get, what sort of patients we were going to get. Because I know they were thinking, talking about we could have patients who were quite acutely unwell, so there would be a medical ward. So what training would those staff need? And it was the unknown. But as things started to progress and we knew what patients we were going to be getting in, I think across all 3 wards there was a slight bit of anticipation because of the fear of the unknown. But as these patients started to come through, they weren't as acutely unwell. They were poorly, but they weren't as acutely unwell as we were expecting. So as they got to know the patients, yes, COVID was there, people were anxious, but as we started, nursing these patients, they were just like any other poorly patient, but we're having to take, different precautions with them. And I think the staff, they were amazing across all wards, all down to the admin, down at reception. Everybody stepped up and gave that, they went the extra mile as far as I feel. So
I think as well, whilst the patients, we were familiar with those patients, it was the environment that we were having to work in. It was so weird not having relatives. And I know I was there when one of the patients died and who was COVID positive, and it felt then like I'd only done half a job. I found it very, very hard to deal with emotionally, because I felt that one of the things that you do in end of life care is you care for relatives because the patients can't care for them themselves. And not having access to those relatives, you couldn't give them that emotional, psychological support.
Because they're there, aren't they, at the last hours, and we're caring not just for the patient but for the relative as well, their mental health, because they're losing a loved one and they couldn't do that.
And you only do that once, don't you? Yeah, it has to be right. And I think the courage of staff going in and the courage but compassion of staff going in, really wanting to get it right for those patients, relatives, as well as for the patient.
We couldn't get it right.
No.
Because,
we could only get it as right as we could.
So we were trying to make it as, because at that point we didn't have the app either on WhatsApp with the, what I mean, the tablet we had. So we couldn't get patients to, sort of have the last conversations, just have that last little bit to say goodbye. But as things moved on, then we were allowed to bring, people in. They could spend that last time, even though it was one person. That made all the difference.
I think as well, there were little things that mean a lot at that time. Things like the knitted hearts and the cards that we did. And I will always remember when you and a colleague went down to the mortuary and read out.
I still have them here.
Well, you went down to the mortuary and you read out the relative's letter to the patient and tucked it in his hand, because that was the closest that son could get. And that, I just found
that was the hardest thing that me and Gemma had to do. It wasn't. I can't even talk about it because it's too upsetting.
But I think, talking about courage, I think the courage of the staff, when people talk about courage and the 6 C's, they talk about people stepping up and speaking when things aren't right. But actually, everybody outside of the NHS was encouraged to stay at home, not go out because the virus was there.
We had the courage that we all came to work,
walking right towards COVID, and staff were so courageous.
Yeah, they were. They were, and then the other thing was with staff going, quite a few staff caught it and were off sick. So we had that, staff really stepped up and filled that gap.
Yeah.
Sometimes doing 7-8 days working to make sure our patients were all cared for. And that was the biggest courage that they could do and compassion they could show. And, that goes a million miles, for our patients. And that's the dedication that the staff here have got.
Yeah.
They will go that extra mile and they will make sure those patients are safe, they are cared for, and they've got the support as well because the families aren't there.
Yeah. I think the staff at Lings Bar, and I think the staff who came and worked with us, really did what needed to be done. So you'd got activity coordinators, new in post, suddenly being asked to do care and such like, which wasn't what they were employed to do. It wasn't what they expected, and it wasn't what they expected in their new job. But they did that because they could see it was needed. And I think the children's IMS and VACS team who came down, who deal with a completely different working environment, a different client group, they came down and they, with the help of the staff here, worked out how they could make a difference.
Yeah.
And they made a massive difference. They were hugely beneficial to our service.
Yeah.
And they were other people who could have sat back and did something different, who showed courage to come down and work in a different
way. They wanted to help.
Yeah.
They wanted to make sure the patients had the best journey that they could have in such difficult times, And you can't thank people enough for that.
Yeah, no.
Everybody called.
One of the things that I can feel at the moment is, as we're heading into this second wave or second peak or whatever,
a little bit of uncertainty, I think.
And that nervousness, the nervousness of knowing what we've been through already, and we might have to go through it again.
Yeah.
And I think whilst we're wiser because we know what we can do.
Yeah. We've learned an awful lot.
Yeah. I think that feeling of dread of please don't let it be like it was before, that is going to test staff. And I think the health and well-being of staff being such a priority now is so important, because we've got to go through that. We've got to go and face those dangers again.
Yeah.
And do
I think we're probably in a little bit better place as well, because we've got a health and well-being worker, Angela, on site now, where staff can go and have a chat if they're unsure. They've always got their ward managers to go to. They've got, anybody will sit and chat, but now we've got Angela on board as well. That's going to have a massive benefit for them.
Yeah. And I think doing that mental health first aid training, where all the managers and deputies did, just gives you that much more insight, because I know she's talked about, she's already had a large number of staff coming to see her about anxiety, about the second wave and COVID and what's going to happen again. And I think having that awareness and knowing that staff are under that pressure and knowing what we need to do to look after each other.
Yeah.
We all pulled together before, the whole hospital pulled together, like you say, admin, clerical, everybody. And we can do that again, because we are a fantastic little unit who do know and care about each other. But I think we're really going to need to do it, because we now know what we're up against.
Yeah. And we can hit this one head on.
Yeah.
We've got all our PPE, staff have got all their policies and procedures in place. They've got the support, of all their managers. And, and I think, yes, it's going to be tough. And, but we'll be there together. We'll get through it together like we got through the last one. Hopefully, won't lose patience as we did last time,
So if we were going to say in 3 words, sum up why our staff deserve recognition during this week: courage, compassion.
Compassion.
Should we just say the 6 C's?
Yeah,
that's basically it, isn't it?
You can't
all the 6 C's and a few more C's as well.
Enough for what they did.
Yeah.
You know,
Across all the wards.
yeah.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
all. I mean, we helped each other out out of the wards. You know, when we were short. You know, it's having that dedication there. We know if somebody's struggling, we'll go and help them out. You know.
And we do that normally, but I think in that situation, with all that was going on around, it did sometimes feel, you know, you'd come to work and there'd be nobody on the roads and you wouldn't see anybody except for people walking, but we were all heading to work. And I think that does bring in, if you've got a good team to start with, then that brings that even closer, doesn't it?
It does. If you've got a good team, I mean, in this team in Lings Bar, brilliant anyway. You know, you've got people standing beside you, and you know, we'll get there together.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Let's hope they show it then.
Yeah.
All right. See you soon, Ange. Thanks a lot.
All right.
Bye.